I used the steak knife, and at some point his shoe in the sock came off, so his foot was exposed. I cut a big gash in his foot.
On November 14th, 2009, Brandon enters a trailer expecting a three-way intercourse with his ex-girlfriend, Allison Martin. But little does he know that Justin is preparing the worst for him. Justin ambushes Brandon and ties his hands and tapes his mouth, making him helpless. In the next hours, Justin stabs Brandon brutally in the chest and slices his face. After mercilessly torturing him and leaving him nearly dead, Justin loads him into the very truck he had arrived in and sets it on fire. Justin, along with his accomplice, fled the scene, hoping it was the best cover-up, until the detectives captured Justin. In the interrogation room, Justin would uncover the whole story behind this monstrosity.
I ran a knife around his face a little bit. Basically, I want him to feel pain before he died. When we were in Jackson at the reception center, we talked about you meeting Brandon, correct?
Yes.
And that was in South Haven. Can you tell me how that all came about again?
I had been using Allison's phone, pretending to be her, while I talked to him to try to persuade him to meet me.
Okay, can I ask you real quick? And I'm not gonna try and interrupt you too much. Just let me ask you, how long had that been going on?
I can't say for sure.
Do you have any guess or any idea at all?
2 months maybe.
Okay. Okay. All right, go ahead.
You know, he'd always find an excuse to put it off, coming to Kalamazoo. And,
is that what you were trying to do, is get him to come to Kalamazoo?
yes.
Okay.
Finally, I just, figured on if I can't get him to come to me, then I'll go to him.
Okay. And how did you do that?
Using what I knew about him and his tendencies, I persuaded him to meet with me as her.
Okay. What do you mean by when you say his tendencies? What's your?
I mean, from what I understood, that he was a panty chaser.
Okay.
And he liked,
Where did you get your information from?
Well, this is all from Allison.
Okay. All right.
She had told me about him after the first time he had contacted her, shortly after we had gotten together.
Okay.
Well, a month and a half, 2 months or so after we had been dating. He had contacted her, and it upset her. I mean, she texted back with him a few times. I'm not exactly sure what she had told him, but she's not a very aggressive person, with confrontation. So, I'm not sure if she, got on his head, leave me alone, but I got pretty jealous about it.
Okay.
And then, as I started to check her phone when she wasn't around, basically, when she was sleeping, taking a shower, I would go through her phone and make sure that she wasn't talking to anybody. And just so happened that one time that she was sleeping, she wasn't around, but her phone buzzed and it happened to be him. So started playing his game with him, trying to get, you're not gonna mess with my woman.
Okay, so when you say it buzzed, was that a text?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if they ever talked on the phone.
Okay.
When I wasn't around or anything.
Okay.
I started playing this, game with him, and he had a tendency. He wanted, there's certain times when he would text her that I would know to pay attention to her phone to see who might have been calling.
Did you get the impression that she was texting him, maybe initiating some of it on her own?
I don't know. The thought had crossed my mind.
Justin openly accepts responsibility for the heinous crime, but tries to justify his actions by portraying Brandon in a negative light and claiming he was protecting Allison. His version of events might have gone unquestioned if detectives hadn't uncovered the full story. The only truth is that he was obsessed with Allison. The reason he lured Brandon is still hidden, and its revelation will shake this case wide open.
So what happened?
When I knew I couldn't get him to come to Kalamazoo, then, I'd have to, if I wanted to settle this, I'd have to go to him. And at this point, with everything that he had said to me, thinking I'm her, it boiled up.
What were some of the things that he was saying that caused you so much distress?
I just see. I was playing along with it, so I mean, it's he would text something, whatever, how he would miss getting it on with Allison, and I'd text back, playing along with it, and it would sometimes it'd get pretty explicit, and I play along so that it wouldn't tip him off to anything, but it just it ate me up inside.
Okay, so how long would these conversations take place?
Sometimes a matter of minutes, sometimes I'd text, she'd be sleeping, and I'd be texting him for anywhere from a couple minutes to maybe an hour or two.
Was she ever present when you were texting him back?
I don't recall exactly. I mean, it was on her phone that I was doing it, so
Okay.
One of the things though, if I was trying to hide it from her, that I was texting her, and then when it came down to it, I told her that he had to go, that this was going on, and I told her that I'm gonna get rid of this guy.
Okay, so when you say you've got to go, you're going to get rid of him, what does that mean? I mean, there's a lot of interpretations. What does that mean?
In my mind, I was going to kill him. I didn't tell her that right off the bat.
When did you tell her that?
It was either the day before or the day of.
Okay.
I mean, it was within a few days of actually doing it.
Right.
Because that's when
What'd she say about it?
she didn't want me to go through with it, and I told her it had to be done.
Right. So you lured him to South Haven. How'd you get him there? Where did you have him?
She knows the territory, so I told her to have him meet her somewhere close and follow her back to her parents' travel trailer.
Where's that at?
I don't know exactly. I mean,
You've been there before though, Jay?
Yeah, I've been there before.
And you picked the spot?
Right.
You picked the travel trailer?
Right. I mean, I had him convinced that he was, that he was going to meet Allison, for, to have a good time, or, little favors and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I didn't want her going somewhere of his choosing. Your parents got that place out there to bring it there, knock him out or whatever.
Okay. So she met him. Where'd she meet him at?
I don't know exactly. It wasn't very far. A restaurant or something. It was told me, have him meet you and have him follow you back.
Allison had been in a relationship with Justin for over 6 months, but she still couldn't get over Brandon. Justin strategically confesses to the ruthless, premeditated crime, but tries to keep his true motivation hidden. He claims that Allison was unaware of this brutality, but what he doesn't know is that the detectives have already interrogated Allison, and to counter his claims, they have way more evidence than he could imagine.
What was the plan for when she got him back to the trailer?
She was to keep him distracted so that I could come up behind him and hit him with the log.
Where were you at when they arrived?
I was on the other side of the next door trailer waiting for them. I crept around once the automatic headlights killed off. I crept around.
Then what happened?
I hit him with the log.
You ever see you?
He didn't notice until I hit him that first time.
Where did you hit him?
I tried to hit him in the head, but I must have caught him on the shoulder because it wasn't a solid hit. Because if I would have caught him in the head, he probably would have got knocked out.
So it didn't knock him out?
No.
So then what happened?
I swung 3-4 times, and when he was stumbling around, after the third, fourth time hitting him, I grabbed him up and got him in a chokehold, and we ended up wrestling around. He finally passed out.
We're on the ground at this point?
Yes.
Now, you say a club. Can you describe this club? What is it like?
I don't know, anywhere about yay big.
Is it round?
Roundish.
Okay.
I wouldn't say perfectly round, but roundish, yeah.
Where did it come from?
I had found it one day, can't remember if I was doing yard work or if I was walking home or something, but it was right by where we live in Clover Street.
How long was it?
It was 4 feet, maybe 3.5, 4 feet or so.
What you're kind of describing, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is it kind of round in spots and flat on the ends? Do you know what a landscape timber is? It's almost like a 4x4, only it's rounded the bulk of it's rounded, but then the two ends are
Yeah,
flat.
I know what you're talking about. And I don't believe it was. I don't believe it was like that.
Was it similar to that, or?
Similar. One end was flat, as in it had been sawed, and the other end was chipped up, and like maybe it broke off or something.
Did you modify it at all? No. You just took it as it was. Okay, so then you choked him out.
Yes.
And this is, where is this at?
It's on the patio of a parents' trailer.
That cement slab patio.
Okay, and then what happens?
When I was satisfied that he was actually passed out and he wasn't trying to fake, so I let it go. I jumped up, I grabbed a roll of duct tape that I had set next to the steps. I taped up his hands.
How'd you tape up his hands?
Behind his back, wrapped it around his wrist a few times, and wrapped it tape around his ankles. Either in between then or right after then, it was when I first put the tape over his mouth, and I put tape around his hands and his ankles a few different times because he kept struggling. It would loosen up. I'd hit him a few times to, keep him from struggling. I grabbed a little bit more with some tape.
It was just the beginning of the most horrifying night of Brandon's life, and his last. Justin chose to make the victim feel powerless by taping him before the brutal attack, suggesting this was a cold, calculated strategy that Brandon was completely unaware of. Justin indeed appears to be an obsessive partner as he tries to defend Allison. At the same time, Allison was constantly filled with hatred against Brandon. Every now and then, she would tell Justin that Brandon was constantly harassing and threatening her, but the truth was far from this. What the detective is about to hear next from Justin would be far more disturbing compared to what has been revealed so far.
At that point, I was pretty satisfied that he was restrained enough, and I went and I searched his pockets. I looked through his wallet, took his car keys, got into his car, did a quick overview of what was in there. I opened his trunk and began pulling stuff out. I pulled the sub out and the amp and tried yanking some more, because there was more stereo equipment in there. Tried yanking it out, but just, most of it wouldn't come.
Know what the trunk now of his car?
At one point, I went back up to the patio to see what was going on. I told Allison that she needed to watch him and let me know if he tried anything. So she was up there keeping an eye on him while I was emptying out his trunk. At one point, I went up there and noticed that he was trying to get his ankles free. That's when I put tape around his knees, just under his knees. I don't know if it was right at that moment, but what I had mentioned, I put tape around his ankles and wrists several different times. And I probably, at that point, wanted to re-secure him. So,
Did you mention, if you did, I apologize, when did you put duct tape on his mouth?
I put a couple of strips over his mouth right after I had done his ankles and his hands the first time. At some point, I noticed that he was trying to get his mouth open, and he was, trying to scream and whatnot. So that's when I started wrapping it around his head. And I know I did it at least twice, two different occasions, about 3-4 times around his head.
So then what? You got his trunk pretty much emptied out now?
Of anything that I wanted to take out of it, yes.
Okay.
I mean, there was plenty more in his trunk. There were pop bottles and this and that, but I wasn't going to, for change.
Right.
I wasn't going to take it,
So you put him in the back you got him in the trunk?
Yeah, I drove to the car, put him in the trunk.
Was he conscious at this point?
More or less, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I beat him pretty well with the stick and kicking him in his ribs and whatnot. So I'm sure he was kind of out of it, but more or less he was conscious.
Justin was preparing for something Brandon hadn't expected when he arrived at the promised location. He claims to have forced Allison to watch the horrors he was inflicting. However, these claims are only the tip of the iceberg. If these claims sound inhumane, wait until Justin reveals the full extent of torture Brandon was forced to endure.
We went and there was some space underneath his tree, surrounded by some brush. And I perfectly spot, tosses it down there. So we throw him down.
Is he conscious at this point?
More or less.
Okay.
I mean, at this point, he tried to struggle a little bit when he was on my shoulder, but I mean, he had to have had some broken ribs and whatnot.
When you put him on the ground, were his eyes open?
Yeah, I mean, he was able to focus on me. I mean, I don't know if he could see Allison because she was holding a flashlight, and when it's dark and you have light in your face, you can't see what's behind it.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he could see me though, and
Did you ever speak to him?
he tried. He tried.
Could you understand what he was trying to say?
Some of it.
What was he trying to say?
Mostly he was trying to he was pleading for me to take the tape off his mouth so that he could, please. He kept saying please. And I told him there's no point. I said that a few times. There's no point trying to plead with me.
So now you get him down on the ground out in that brush. What happens then?
I wanted him to feel pain before he died. I made Allison hold the light on him so that I could see, I took the knives that we had and, I didn't want to vitally hurt him at that point. I mean, my plan was to kill him, but at that point, I just wanted him to suffer for a little while. I first stabbed him in his left quad.
Did he respond to that?
Oh yeah, he moaned and he started to cry. I'd also taken the steak knife and not too hard, but I ran it around his face a little bit, basically, trying to scare him.
When you say ran around his face, are you talking like scratching his face or something? Or?
Yes. I mean, I wasn't putting too much pressure on him. I wasn't trying really to cut him. I just wanted him to feel that fear, I did end up cutting him on his head, though, because he did bleed from one of the times I ran, across his face.
Okay.
Stabbed him several times in the legs. And, I mean, he squirmed around, so, I mean, I got him from several different angles.
Which knife were you using when you stabbed him in the legs?
At first, I was using the butcher knife. Then I used the steak knife. At some point, his shoe and sock came off. One of them. So his foot was exposed. So I used a steak knife and I cut a big gash in his foot.
What part of his foot?
The top of his foot.
Okay. Is he responding every time you do this?
Yes. I can't remember which angle, but I stabbed him in his Achilles tendon on one of his ankles with the steak knife.
Justin taped Brandon's mouth, leaving him no chance to speak. Brandon could have saved himself only if he had had a chance to speak the truth, that he is not, but simply involved in an open relationship with his wife. But it wasn't meant to be easygoing for him, and the seed for this hatred was sown long ago by a lethal force, a psychological trigger by someone he loved the most.
I remember trying to stab him around his stomach and his right shoulder because he was laying on his left side. But his coat and his shirt, I wasn't, at this point I was just trying to, I was just trying to make him feel pain, so I wasn't really trying to stab too hard, and I must not have put enough into it because it wasn't going through very well. I remember Allison kept asking me if I was satisfied yet. Are you done yet?
So what happened after you couldn't stab him in through his jacket?
I remember at one point I had ripped his shirt open. I, get easier access towards his chest and torso. After I, just give him these small little stabs, I kicked him a few more times, stomped on his gut and whatnot. At one point, I was satisfied that he had felt enough pain, and then all right, I'm done here. I wanted to get out of there. So I stabbed him with the butcher knife in his ribs on his right side. And I stabbed him a few times in the same spot. Went in at different angles. The entry point was the same. Not only with just the butcher knife, but with the steak knife. I tried to roll. I remember trying to roll him to his other side. Because at that point I was satisfied. I wanted him to be dead so we could leave. But he wasn't dying quick enough, so I tried to roll him over
and come at him from a different angle, at which point I had heard the stab wound in his ribs, gurgling, so I knew that I punctured a lung. So I knew he was going to die, he wasn't dying quick enough. And I think it pissed me off that he wasn't dying quick enough, and he put up as much struggle because I took the stick and I hit him in the face several times. A couple more minutes of pain for him, he was going to die anyway. But I hit him several times towards this side of his face.
Justin describes the gruesome act very calmly because he feels like he's ended a life, but he was unaware that Brandon was the man whom Allison was obsessed with the most. And Brandon was not the only victim caught in Allison's web of deception, though Justin would only discover her true nature in the end.
And when we talked to you before, you mentioned that you cut his throat or tried to cut his throat.
I'm not at that part yet.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Since he wasn't dead, I didn't want to leave him there still fighting for his life, by himself, while I went and got the gas. So I told Allison to go back to the car, grab the gas can and a lighter, which she left to go do. Now, while she was gone, I let my eyes adjust to the darkness so that I could at least, see him. I could still hear him breathing. He wasn't struggling very much. I think I tried to roll him over a few more times and, come at him from different angles. I do remember I did get him in the back of his ribs on his left side with the steak knife. And I had used the steak knife and stabbed him a few more times. And at which point he wasn't dying fast enough for my satisfaction. So that's when I don't know which side I did first. I can't remember how he was laying, but I sliced his neck on one side, and at some point he rolled to the other side and still wasn't dying. So I sliced his neck, and it was dark, and I tried to put enough pressure on it to catch something vital. I knew he was going to die. He just wasn't bleeding fast enough. So if I cut his throat, the process would be quicker.
Jay, did you tell him why he had to die? Did you tell him what he had done?
When Allison went back to the car, I did say something still.
What'd you tell him?
I told him that he would never be able to hurt anyone ever again. And even before that, at some point, Allison might have been standing there or not, but I had called him names and whatnot, piece of shit, son of a bitch, that he had deserved to die a long time ago. I could tell he was trying to plead, even with the duct tape over his mouth. I told him that, there's no point. You're not going to live through this night. I don't recall if I exactly said you're going to die. I'm doing this because you tried to get with my girl. I don't know if I specifically said it like that. I basically let him know that he was going to die because he was a bad person. And he had hurt too many people, and I wasn't going to let him go on to do it again.
In Justin's mind, Brandon was a man with a dark past, and he was the vigilante seeking justice. But the one who put this in his mind was definitely a manipulative genius, one who had tried to persuade many of her previous boyfriends to do the same. Coincidentally, his recently made girlfriend, Allison, was also present at the scene. 6 months before this incident, they met at a restaurant. During the conversation, she claimed Brandon, her ex, had harassed her. This was the trigger point, filling Justin with hate. What remains is whether her claims were true or fabrications. Either way, it sealed Brandon's fate and condemned Justin to prison.
I could tell he was about to die because his breathing became strained and it slowed, but it was deeper. Like he was, struggling to get his last breaths in. And at that point, she had been gone. In my opinion, she had been gone too long. I pulled my phone out and I called her, to find out what's going on. Why are you taking so long? She said she couldn't find the lighter. I said, well, I can't come back right now because he's not dead yet. Just keep looking, I'll stay on the phone with you for a minute, which I did. And she couldn't find a lighter, and she was pretty frantic at that point. I just involved her in something pretty heinous, and she wasn't taking it too well.
I don't know how long I was on. I mean, a few minutes, I was trying to keep her comforted, not freak out while she was looking for this lighter. I told her, this dude's almost done anyway. I'll be back. I'm coming back. So I got off the phone and I was satisfied that he had died at that point. So I ran back to the cars. She had already told me that she couldn't find a lighter in my leather jacket, so I didn't even try looking in there. I was tossing things around the back seat, thinking that maybe it fell out of my pocket and I'd see it laying on the back seat, but trying not to touch anything with my hands inside my sleeves, flipping things around. I couldn't find the lighter, so I looked underneath the front passenger seat, finally found one, and I took the gas and the lighter. I told her to go back to the gate and put the chain back up. So she got in her car and she pulled out. I took a flashlight, the gas, and the lighter back to where he was. I had stuck the knives in the ground. When I left, I had stuck them in the ground, so I pulled them out and set them off to the side while I poured gas on him. Put a trail of gas to light from a distance, a couple feet away. But when I lit it, it didn't go all the way to him. There was, splashed or something, and there was a gap in the path. So I kicked that out real quick, poured more gas on him, lit another path, lit that. He went up. He ignited, went up in flames. I grabbed the knives, the gas can. I ran back to the car, set the knives on the floorboard or passenger seat or something with the gas can. And I hopped in. I tried to start the car, put it in reverse. It wouldn't go, the front wheels were spinning. I put it in forward, tried to rock it. It wasn't going anywhere. So I called her again and told her she needed to come back. And she came back, she parked on the road. I told her that the car was stuck. I can't remember exactly, but she might have asked me what I wanted to do. I was just, at that point, I'm just pondering, okay, I got this dude's dead body. I don't want to leave the car right here. But I didn't know how to get it out of there. I didn't think to have her try to pull up to it and push it out, anything. I didn't know. So after a minute or so, just thinking about it, I said, I'm going to torch it right here. And told her to turn around and pull down the road some ways. I was going to light the car on fire and I'm going to run to the car. Now she pulled down the road quite a ways. Poured gas throughout the inside of the car. Before she left, I made her take the knives because I didn't want to leave them there. When she took them, she put them in the glove box. I didn't find out until later, but she had put them in the glove box.
Justin thought he could cover up the role of his girlfriend, Allison, and take the murder on himself alone. But the detectives have too much to prove him wrong. The witnesses have already spilled who orchestrated the macabre plot. The autopsy team later exposed another diabolical act committed by Justin. Before death, Brandon had inhaled significant amounts of carbon monoxide, indicating he had been cruelly burned alive.
Poured gas throughout the car, put a trail of gas coming out the passenger, or the driver's side rear door. When I lit it, it didn't go up, same situation with the body. It didn't reach all the way to the car. So I tried to use the gas can to throw gas to where it would, hit the car and hit the grass that was on fire so that it would catch the whole car. But it wasn't working. So I went around to the passenger rear door, poured a trail of gas coming out of there, lit that, and the car went up with no problem that time. I ran down the road with the gas can and flashlight. I had seen the brake lights were quite a ways down the road, so I tried flashing the flashlight to try to get her attention, to know that she needed to come back. I'm running, I can't really pull my cell phone out and say, hey, you're too far down the road. And, at that point, that's when the adrenaline that I did have wore off, and, I was drained. I finally got to the car and, I had to pop the hood, put the gas can in the hood, or in the trunk. I got in, we were driving down the road, and I told her, no, this didn't happen, never speak of this again. I was very harsh how I told her,
She driving?
Yes.
Jay, what happened to the club?
The club, it had to, I mean, I didn't take it with me from, it had to been laying close to the body. I mean, I remember using it to hit him in the head a couple times. I don't remember taking it back to the car. If I had taken it back to the car, I probably threw it in the back seat or something. That's the thing I can't remember. But I'm pretty sure I left it laying near the body.
So now you get home.
Well, we didn't talk really much on the ride home for the next 20 minutes. I mean, I'm a smoker, so running that distance to the car and then all of a sudden your adrenaline just stops working. My lungs were shot and I was just hacking and hacking and hacking for 20 minutes, coughing my brains out. You know, we didn't barely talk the whole ride home. I remember I didn't want to touch anything because I knew I had blood on me and blood on my hands, so I kept as still as possible for the whole ride home. We got home and we walked to the back porch. We didn't even go in the front. We walked to the back porch, stripped down everything, took all her clothes off, and went in the house. I had her unlock the door because she didn't have any blood on her hands or anything. Most of the blood was on me. I don't even know if she got any blood on her. I don't see why she would, unless it maybe on her shoes because she was, the ground got pretty bloody where he was laying. But I made her strip down, and I stripped down. We went inside. She quickly threw on some clothes, and I told her to bag up everything we were wearing while I quickly washed up. I had her wash her hands, and I washed my hands, and then, she had put some clothes on. I told her I was going to jump in the shower real quick and just rinse off, which I did. And I don't know if I did that right when we got home. I had her bag up clothes. Then we went to the car, and I had her help me wipe the inside of it where, anywhere basically that possibly we may have touched something and gotten, blood or whatever. We basically wiped down the interior of the car with Clorox wipes.
His account makes it clear the murder was a psychological victory for him. Instead of remorse, he calmly recounts how he covered it up. But an important observation here would be his consistent attempts to downplay Allison's role in the crime. He might have succeeded if Allison herself hadn't inadvertently revealed critical information.
Sean also said that she wants to tell her part because she can't take it anymore. You got to help her on this one part. You got to step up and say what the roles were, and we'll put closure to this and we'll be done. This is the worst part that you got to do, Jay. But you just got to say what her role is. You got to man up for this one, man. You got to help her one more time.
She's already done it.
You got to put it.
Justin, she's already told Sean. She's already told Sean.
She went over there, had to get away from her dad because her dad was drinking and jacking around on Thanksgiving. I don't know if he hit her or pushed her or something, but something went wrong. She went to jail. She spent the night, Sean. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I knew she went there for the holidays.
She got out of the house. She goes over there. Why? Because she's cleansing her soul. She's saying, this is what happened. She even said what kind of knife. It was a Cutco knife that she used to sell Cutco. It was out of her sample set that no one would notice the knife missing because you could use whatever type of samples you wanted. What's going to happen here is there's two knives. It's like one guy shooting two guns. It don't happen. One's got one gun, one's got the other one. That's all there is to it.
What you're trying to do is, in your mind, a very noble thing. But the problem being is that, no, you're trying to take the fall for her, and she's already taken her own fall. So just tell us, at what point did she start?
I can take it away.
I'm sorry?
If I go up there and I put it out there like this and her lawyer fights for her that she didn't do nothing.
Unfortunately, she already said it.
That's not the case. She's already said it. She's
She's
already admitted it, Justin.
She told
all right.
Justin.
I'm not saying she did. I'm not saying she did or she didn't, but she admitted it to she supposedly admitted it to someone of no authority. Is she on tape that she said that? Has she written it out?
She said it to a person which is called a witness.
And she said it to one of your best friends. And your best friend's not going to lie about that.
Yes, he won't lie on you. He says, I love him. I got his back. But I can't do
perjure
this.
myself.
I can't perjure myself.
Quote unquote.
So if he's not going to perjure himself on you, he's not going to perjure himself on Allison.
Because
So
you're
if
his
he's-
friend.
So if he said that she said to him she stabbed him twice, he's not going to lie. All I want's the truth.
Just answer one thing, and we'll leave it at this. Is it true when she told Sean that she stabbed him twice, and we'll just let it go at that.
And then she dropped the knife and couldn't do it anymore.
Is that a true statement?
How about this? I told her she had stabbed him.
No, you know
No.
what?
I don't know about that try.
Hold on.
No,
I told her that she had
Okay,
stabbed him.
all right. You said how about it? I ain't about it. Okay, it's a great
I
try.
like that.
Okay, you know
That's
what?
good.
It's really a great try. Okay, and I know that it breaks your heart, but she let the cat out of the bag. She did.
Yeah, because she had to.
So let's just
She couldn't take it.
yes or no, a true statement that she stabbed him.
And then dropped the knife because she couldn't.
She's got an axe to grind him too.
And couldn't do it anymore.
You got a piece of there you go.
And couldn't do it anymore.
The detectives made a final attempt to lead him to confess that Allison was involved in the murder, but he still chose to defend her. Regardless, Allison had unintentionally revealed her role to a friend, Sean, at a party. It was established that Allison was the real mastermind behind this crime due to her inability to accept the end of her relationship with Brandon. He had filed a complaint against Allison for stalking since she couldn't move on. Allison's previous boyfriends also testified against her in the courtroom that she wanted them to hurt Brandon as well because he was the lost love of her life. What pushed her to reveal the crime to Sean, despite their efforts to cover their tracks? Was it the adrenaline that she got after killing the person she was obsessed with? Or was there some other reason? The trial of Allison Martin and Justin Terpstra took place in the Allegan County Circuit Court in Michigan following the November 14, 2009 murder of Brandon Silverlight. Both defendants were convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy, kidnapping, and torture. They were sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.